So there's actually movement in all states. So when you ask them, when are you sure it's not there? You are actually presupposing that the anxiety is not there sometimes. Because it's true, it's not there sometimes, or in some places, or not at the same kind of level, right? So you're using the word not, and the time. You're challenging their time. And you're challenging their reality. And sometimes, as a result, the client will alter their reality, right? Remember, this is still a do-with process. Let's use another example. Let's say someone says, I didn't realize that upset you. Frankly, that's the client or the person or whoever you're talking to noticing upset from within, right? So your response could be, I didn't realize how upset you were. And also, you could also say, what you didn't realize was what else you were communicating. Another one, someone says, I can't stop drinking. How can you not stop drinking? Interesting, huh? How can you not stop drinking? Interesting. So begin to think about how you can utilize the not state. That's really one of the keys. Where do you place the not, the negation, within a sentence? Remember, quantum linguistics is about the 4 quantum states, right? And let's give you more examples, and then we'll go into a little bit more of the theory. Let's say someone says, my wife never has dinner done. That means she doesn't love me. Well, how much would you have to eat so she knows she loves you? You're taking the opposite, and then pace it to the limit and use a counterexample with basically a referential index switch to the solution, right? And, let's say someone says, my wife doesn't understand me. Well, what is it that you don't totally understand in yourself? Whew. That caused you to think that she doesn't understand you, right? Because if you feel like someone doesn't understand you, that means you don't totally understand yourself. Interesting, huh? It's also true that if someone is seeking extramarital relationships, or when they're in a committed relationship and they want to seek other relationships, well, that's actually them. If they tell you, hey, I don't feel like I'm getting enough love, right? Maybe that's what they say. Or maybe they're like, hey, I really like to feel different kinds of love. But really the key here is they're missing the kind of love that they deserve to feel for themselves. They need to love themselves. And they're looking for it externally while it starts from within. So, and you'll find that a lot of times, unfortunately, abusive relationships, people that are getting into those relationships really unconsciously got into them because their unconscious mind want to remind them they need to love themselves. Yeah? So let's move on. Another one, let's say someone says, I regret my decision. Cool, when did you decide that, right? Before regretting it, what were you deciding? That's what we call a decision destroyer as well, and we'll touch on that more later. What if someone says, I can't decide if I should take the next level training, like upgrade protocol or go home? So if you don't do what you want, how will you learn what you need to learn? That could be your response. Or someone says, should I stay in this relationship or not? Your response could be, how will you ever be able to relate to anyone if you aren't free to do what you want? Oh, wow, right? What about someone says, I need to know why I do it before I change what I do? Well then, why don't you change while you do it? See, a lot of people come and tell me, they say, hey, unless I do this, I don't think I'll be successful. And I say, well, why don't you become successful as you do the change, right? I remember one time hearing from a client, and he was like, man, until I do parts integration, I can't make money. And I'm thinking in my head, how ridiculous is that, right? That's a limiting decision in and of itself. Couple with a part, right? So, first of all, I asked him, so that's good to know. What if you could make money as you integrate yourself? Yeah? Because who says you can only do one thing at a time? You can breathe and beat your heart at the same time. You can do this. You can do these things, right? So clients will come to you, oh, until I make money, I can't take this action. I can't do this. I can't feel good, or I can't join your program, or I can't work with you, or whatever. What if you could do both? Clients that are not considering what they haven't considered ought to consider these new things. The key to understanding this is very much how it relates to the mind's ability to construct reality. We create what we observe. We observe with our minds. And observations are measurements. And measurements transforms things. We make measurements through our language. So by saying certain things, making measurements, we are constructing certain rules in our reality. We don't want some of those rules in our reality. Therefore, by deconstructing some of this language and using this way of thinking, inductive thinking, you'll find that it's easy to linguistically alter their reality. Think about this. When a client tells you a problem, you could ask, what is it? Right? And what is it not? And how do you know what it is and what it is not? Right? What is it that you need to not know to know this? Really, you're helping the client see that what is it that you're pretending to not know to know this problem? Right? Someone's experiencing a problem. Well, what is it that they're pretending to not know to have the problem? Because you can then bring everything back into their awareness. A little bit more application here. So, what is the problem, right? How do you know it's a problem or it's not a problem? When did you decide that? This is actually a quantum linguistics question. You already know this question, right? When don't you do it? Now, right? What are you not deciding when you don't do it? What or how is that different from what you were or how you were? How do you know that now? How do you know that you have that problem? How do you know that you don't have that problem? And what other changes would you like to make? Another way of using inductive language is obviously once again going beyond the boundary and therefore false identifications, because boundaries are false identifications often, right? For example, someone says, I am not creative, or that means I can't do this, right? Or both. You can say, so you're not creative. Is that all you think you are? You'll notice a physiological shift. They'll be like, oh, whoa. Right? Because people will tell you, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, I'm an accountant, I'm this or I'm that. So you're an accountant. Is that all that you are? No. Aren't you more than that? Right? There should be an agreement. They should feel that, yeah, I'm more than that. So what are you that's not an accountant? The previous identification, right? Or someone says, oh, I'm depressed. That means I can't be happy. So you're depressed. Is that all you think you are? Aren't you more than that? Interesting, right? That's an interesting way of thinking. Aren't you more than that? So what you are that's not depressed. So what are you that's not depressed? They may think about it. They may have a response real quick. You want a verbal answer from the person, from the client. And we've gone beyond the boundaries. So we need a word to stabilize the shift. The label will basically stabilize this. And beyond the word that they just said, right? And then you say, hey, is that all you are? How much more are you than that? And for extra leverage, you can use tag question. You do know you're more than that, don't you? And then afterward, you're like, how do you know that? How do you know? So give you a more specific example. Someone says, oh, I am broke, therefore I can't work with you. So you're broke. Is that all you think you are? Aren't you more than that? Yeah, you're more than that. So what are you that's not broke? They'll say, oh, my mind's not broke. My mind's fine. Oh, cool. And beyond your mind, is that all you are? Beyond your mind being not broke, is that all you are? How much more are you than that? You do know you're more than that, right? And then they say, yeah. Well, how do you know that? Or another example. Someone will say, hey, I'm depressed, therefore I can't get out of the house and go to work. Ah, so you're depressed. Is that all you think you are? Aren't you more than that? So then they say, yeah, I'm more than that. So what are you that's not depressed? Interesting. That's outside the boundary, isn't it? Right? They'll say, oh, well, and then they may process for a moment. They're like, yeah, it's my spirit. It's not depressed. It still believes that I can be happy. Right? Whatever they say. Oh, cool. And beyond your spirit, is that all you are? How much more are you than that? Right? Because you also have a physical body. You do know that you are more than that, don't you? You're all of it. Right? And then they're like, yeah, I do know. How do you know that? Right? Let's say someone says, I'm anxious. Okay, is that all that you think you are? Aren't you more than that? So they'll say yes. So what are you that's not anxious? Oh. When I'm taking a bath. No, I mean like, what are you? Not when are you, right? What are you that's not depressed? Oh, I think my muscles. Okay, that's a weird answer, but that's actually a valid answer. Okay, so beyond your muscles, is that all you are? Beyond your muscles. The anxiety that's not there, right? Is that all you are? How much more are you than that? You do know you're more than that, don't you? And then you ask them, how do you know? That's a very interesting way of helping the individual see that beyond that false identification, there's more, right? You look at a chair and you say, that's a chair. Well, what's not a chair? Well, that's definitely a chair, but what's not a chair? Everything else. So, everything else that's not a chair. You can begin to see that this is essentially how you identify the problem. The chair has a boundary for the chair, but anything that's not the chair is not the chair. So if you focus on not the chair, then you're not the chair, right? You're not focusing on the chair. So if the chair is the problem, and you're outside of the problem, you're outside of the chair, you're not the chair. You're not in the problem. This may sound a little interesting, different, weird, confusing, whatever that is. You'll find that as we continue, and you can continue to listen to this audio and repeat it, you'll get more and more understanding, and it becomes more and more clear, right? Clearer and clearer. So, remember, quantum linguistics does not necessarily make sense for the conscious mind, although it does, it can. But it makes a lot of sense because of the results. And your unconscious mind likes it.